DJ PK, and we are joined now by Rocco Miller, college basketball analyst and bracketologist on Bracketeer.com. Rocco, good morning.
Good morning, gentlemen. How are you today?
Good. Thanks for coming on. We have college basketball questions. March Madness, the state of Utah. And we've been here 30 years, and we used to have teams in the tournament all the time. We had the deep runs with the Utes, had Jimmer Mania, but it has been a little thin around here when it comes to NCAA tournament berths the last few years. This year looks different. Cougars and Aggies. Let's start with BYU. Where do you think they're going to end up being seated in this tournament?
Well, today, BYU's sitting at a safe 5 seed, and I say safe because I would have them today as the highest ranked 5. If any of the 4s are to slip further, there's an opportunity perhaps for BYU to get up another line. But we also have to just see, when the committee's going to be wrapped up with their process. It's been nice of David Warlock, who runs the NCAA tournament, to update us. I saw he tweeted about an hour ago that so far they just got done doing the 1 seeds, and 23 of the 36 spots, I believe, have already been identified for at-larges. So, on one hand, it's nice that they're being very clear about the process this year. Of course, not going to give us specific team names or anything. But, part of me wishes it was more like the old days where championship week had a little bit more on the line, where, a BYU can go on a run and get up to a 4 or even a 3. But now, just based on what we've learned the last couple of years, where you're at heading into this week, you're probably only going to move maybe up 1 or down 1 at most. And that, even then, you probably need an extreme result like Clemson, good example. They take a 21-point loss to Boston College. Really, really not a good look to finish up, but it's probably only going to cost them the difference of a 5 and a 6 or maybe as low as a 7. But, so that's kind of just the overall point of view. And then I think the real key for BYU, as you guys know, is can they get into Salt Lake City or not? And that's been a fun, rotating, moving target every time I do the exercise.
How about the situation with Kansas? 2 guys out. They keep getting smoked here. 10 losses, first time under Self. What do you think the committee will do with them?
Yeah, I moved Kansas to a 4 seed today. I don't think you can drop them any lower based on the fact that you can't take away what they've already earned. And what they earned, up until about a week ago, they had more wins against NCAA tournament level teams than anybody in the country. Now a couple teams have passed them. I think Purdue's higher and maybe 2 or 3 others, but they've got 9 wins against the field. The thing you don't like is now they have a pretty clear losing record in games away from Lawrence. They just moved to 6-9 in those 15 games. So I feel like some of those numbers are, the losses have piled up. And I'm just looking at it because you don't know how the committee is going to look at the injuries, right? They could certainly tweak things further if they feel the need to. But just based on the results alone, we're factoring in now a pretty big loss to Cincinnati. I still can't see them going lower than a 4, but a 4 feels probably where they should be.
Regardless of what they do this week, is Houston locked up a 1 seed?
I think so, yes. Because between those 3, Purdue, Houston, and Connecticut, there's a big separation between those 3 and the next 2, which are probably Tennessee and North Carolina fighting for that last number 1 spot.
Yeah, it makes sense. Mountain West is having a banner season in terms of what they've been able to accomplish with the depth of the conference. Maybe we'll see if they have a really good team. I think Utah State's really good, but, San Diego State's got the pedigree, obviously, and then Nevada has been really good. Boise, who wins in San Diego State at the end of the season. And then you got New Mexico over there as climbing and decent team, and Colorado State has been at times ranked this season. To me, especially with the Pac-12 being down, they got to get 5 in, at least 5.
Mm-hmm. I agree with you. Yeah, I think 5's the number right now. The big variable, of course, is New Mexico, who has another massive game against Boise State today. I don't know if we're at a point now where New Mexico had their chances on the road to end the season at Utah State. Of course, lost that heartbreaker in Logan last week. They had Boise State before that, didn't get it done in Boise. They'll get another crack at them on a neutral court today. Doesn't have the same amount of weight as a true road win does, but it's still really important to beat other tournament teams to show the committee you are deserving. But I think New Mexico is right there teetering as a team where the committee could take them for different reasons, and they could also have plenty of reasons to leave them out. The league as a whole, I agree with you. I think the team that's really grown on me every single time I do the evaluation is Nevada. Nevada is highest on the seed list for me. They've passed San Diego State by 1 or 2 spots. I've both of them as 6 seeds. But Nevada, they got the road wins at Utah State, at Colorado State, at Boise State. Nobody else in the league did that kind of road damage against the others. In fact, San Diego State, against the other top 7 teams, went 0-6 themselves in their 6 chances on the road. So it shows how hard those road wins really were, and it's really made Nevada's profile very impressive. Yep.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
What I want to see in the play-in game is St. John's versus New Mexico, Patino versus Patino.
It's funny you mention that because today, if you do the bracket math, I've been forecasting all year that the American Conference and the Atlantic 10 are going to send a bid steal to the tournament because Richmond and South Florida have been the first-place team. They're the number 1 seeds in those tournaments. So the bracket math is factoring that in. Let's just pretend for a second that both Dayton and Florida Atlantic, who are at-large teams, win those tournaments. That opens up 2 spots. Today, my first 2 teams out are St. John's and New Mexico. And the way that the first 4 works is the last 2 at-large teams are, unless there's an in-season rematch or they're from the same conference, they would face each other. So in that example, without changing anything else, if we can get those 2 extra spots, they would face each other.
Classic. Where do you put the Aggies in this? Where are they seated?
Yeah, so the Aggies are the strongest number 7. I'm having a hard time moving them up higher because although you like the fact they won the league and they won at Boise, outside of that win at Boise, they, most all their other wins against NCAA level were at home. So it's just not as strong as a profile as even, the one I'm struggling with is Utah State or Clemson. I left Clemson above because Clemson's won at Alabama. They beat North Carolina on a neutral court. They beat North Carolina on a road game. They beat TCU on a neutral court. So it's difficult because at the top of the resume, a team like Clemson's still much stronger than Utah State. Of course, Utah State won such a big percentage of their games. They might get moved up or down based on that, but some of their predictive numbers are suggesting more of a 7 as well. So I think 7 feels right for the Aggies based on what we know right now.
I think to an extent the regular season in college basketball, it's certainly early in the season, unless for a few big matches, it kind of gets pushed aside. You got football going and all that stuff, and then you got NFL playoffs. And so the point where I'm going with this is I don't really see a need to expand the tournament. I like it the way it is. How about you?
I do too, and I think it's an honor to make the NCAA tournament. It's hard, and it should be hard. A bunch of these teams doing this exercise year after year on the bubble, they're on the bubble because they're very inconsistent teams, and there are teams right now that are not far from being in, like whether it's a Wake Forest or a Villanova or a Memphis. They've had countless opportunities to prove they belong, and most of the times they go out, they show us why they don't belong. If we expand the field and we're putting all those teams in, there's a lot less weight on those types of games that we've been following, for weeks now on those types of teams. But I get it. If you're in the business, you would, of course, want this field expanded. Job security is number 1 priority for 90% of head coaches. Not everybody's Tom Izzo or Bill Self, right? So, or Bruce Pearl even. Job security in this era is very difficult. Guys are getting fired after 1 year. Guys are moving up after 1 year. And I think they want it to be more proportionate, of course, with the rest of D1 getting 20 to 25% of the population into the NCAA tournament. And from that standpoint, I get it, but this is the one great event in all of sports. I think we can agree with that. And trying to tweak it too much is going to be very risky. So I think all that's going to go into account. I don't know if we'll go to 68 to 72 to 76. There's talks of up to 80, maybe 90, 96. It's all over the place. So I do think by the end of the summer we'll have more clarity.
You know, the thing about 96, we've got, Big Sky teams here and WAC teams, and leagues like that are going to get 15 and 16 seeds. And if it goes to 96, they're going to get 23 and 24 seeds. But those 15 and 16s push the ones, they almost never win, but there have been close games. I wonder if the Big Sky would embrace that, thinking, well, then we're going to play the 9th or 10th seeds. We might be able to get those guys. And if we win, we get a 7 or 8 seed, we might be able to get those guys. They might think the tournament's more fun at that point.
Yeah, it's an interesting thought. I think the thing I think about is if they made all of those slots play-in games, like we have today for the last 2 16-seed spots, what you do financially is the winner of the play-ins for all those spots get an extra financial unit. And so leagues that I talk to, like the SWAC and the NEC, the Northeast Conference, now the OVC a little bit, the MEAC, they all want to get into the play-in game. They'd rather go to the play-in game than go to the main bracket because they have such a better chance of earning that financial share. So it's a huge deal to those leagues. So what you would see happening is your Big Skies, your Summit leagues of the world, if they had that same setup, it would give them that extra chance to get the extra money, and that's how they would get those leagues to agree to it. That's how I see it playing out. Okay. Now, whether or not it makes the games more competitive, I would hope so. I would think so, because obviously you usually put a much stronger champion out than the lower D1 leagues. But my heart of hearts kind of hates that. I want to see as many teams up, in the 11, 12, 13 range coming from those types of leagues.
Well, Rocco, we appreciate a few minutes. Thanks for joining us, and enjoy the madness.
You too, fellas. Thank you very much. Have a good day.
Rocco Miller, college basketball analyst and bracketologist on Bracketeer.com. DJ and PK, your feedback is coming up next. Stay with us.